Hi, everyone. This is your girl, Teresa Max, my hoops and hurdles. And today we have a guest, Dr. Tara Brown. She's coming today to talk to us about coping with grief. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Brown. So, Dr. Brown, tell people about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to see you again. So, my name is Dr. Terra Brown. I am a criminal justice professional. I have been for the past 11 years. Born and raised in South Central LA, came to Texas and just kind of made a life for myself since I've been here. Have experienced various types of grief and traumatic experiences over the course of my life. My most recent being the murder of my brother, which caused me to write a dissertation on how siblings are impacted by grief. Because of how my experiences kind of played out. So, in essence, um, try to, kind of use my pain for purpose, instead of kind of wallowing in it, because I did initially struggle with it. So I just decided to try to do something to, I guess, so much make me feel better, but to also kind of get that research out there. Um, I saw it quite often, candles, shrines, and things like that over the course of the years where several people experienced gang violence and loss. So it was extremely common for us to see. So, like I said, just kind of really want to get that research out there.
Okay. And why do you think people grieve for so long? Why do you think people take so long through the grieving process?
Well, I will start by saying that it is an extreme common misconception that there is a timeline. There is no
Mhm.
set timeline to grieve a loss, whether it's a loved one, a friend, a cat. There is no set timeline, and so unfortunately, the what happens is people go through the grieving process, and it doesn't look like how you may or I may think that,
Mhm.
and so it causes an issue to where we may now start to feel like, why is this taking so long?
Mhm.
Which actually, on the flip side, makes the person who is grieving struggle with their grief because now they feel like they can't talk to anyone about it. Now they feel like people don't
Yes.
understand. Now they feel like that they're being bothersome. And then you'll hear those, oh, here she go again, or oh, here you go again. And it really does actually disrupt the grieving process and cause them what's kind of known as secondary grief. So
Mm.
grieving the loss of my loved one or whatever natural death experience that I'm experiencing, but
Mhm.
now the loss of my friend group, the loss of my family, the loss of being able to feel comfortable speaking out, about how I feel, because you have to remember that when people go through loss, the first thing that people say is, if you need anything, let me know.
They do.
And and they're bringing the casseroles and they're bringing all of this good stuff to help you feel better at the time, but once
Mhm.
that casserole is over, everyone else goes back to their lives. You are the only one in your family, and whoever is directly impacted by that loss, everyone else still has to pick up the pieces. So in 6 months or 9 months, when everyone else has forgotten about it unless you post it on Facebook,
Mhm.
like, you're still going through that. So for me, it'll be 7 years next month, and I still grieve my brother every day, but everyone might not understand that. And the thing is, it would be best to have that empathy for that person and understand that a grieving person can have great days and
Mhm.
have bad days. So who's to say what that timeline looks like? Well, why do we grieve a boyfriend so long? Why do we grieve a girlfriend so long? Why do we give people all of these chances? Why do we stay in relationships we shouldn't be in?
Mhm.
I don't hear those questions being posed. What is the true timeline
Exactly.
process? So I would say that we grieve as long as we need to.
Mhm. And do you think people should receive kind of some type of therapy or counseling or some type of medication to go through the process?
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer that you can have Jesus and a therapist. I am a huge proponent of mental health awareness and utilizing your platform. I just had my own therapy session today at 12. She is on the schedule every month, because we all need it for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so, a lot of times, especially in the African American community, we shy away from therapy and mental health because we don't want these people in our business.
Exactly.
We don't want people to think we crazy. I don't need medication. I don't need this. I don't need that. But really and truly, it boils down to self care and mental health awareness and speaking up about how you feel and how things are impacting you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. When I did my interviews for my sibling survivors, several of them were like, "Oh no, I just pray about it. Oh no, I just, God's gonna, XYZ." And I believe that. I am a firm believer, born and raised in the church. Um, but at the same time, if you're like me, when I was going through that process, I needed something more tangible. I needed
Mm-hmm.
back to me. I needed someone who could tell me, "Hey, Tara, you know what? It's okay that you feel that way." Because I'm sorry, the praying hands and I'm praying for you comments on Facebook weren't doing it for me.
Mm-mm.
I need, I need some,
You need more.
and really and truly, I mean, if we're being honest, half those people have no idea how you feel. Half those people, and I pray that no one ever experiences the murder of a sibling. It is the worst pain in the absolute world. But they don't get it. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you need that extra professional help. I don't want to be told, again, no shade to prayer and fasting and all that good stuff. I'm a firm believer in it. But you don't want to hear that when you're going through the deepest, darkest parts of your time, because that comes
Mm-hmm.
like a band-aid on a gunshot wound. I need somebody to stitch me up and help me, put me through physical therapy,
Mm-hmm.
get me back on track. And so, therapy is awesome. Grief support groups, awesome. Um, those areas where you can actually sit in an environment and really just say, you know what, I am messed up. This is how I feel, and you don't have to feel scared about it. And you don't have to feel like you have to censor yourself because you don't want to feel like you're not a believer, or you don't want to feel like you are in a space where you know people people invalidate your feelings. You want to have that opportunity. So I highly encourage anyone that is struggling through any type of loss, any type of mental health issues. I'm not telling you not to pray about it. Please pray about it, but please pray and put some work into it. And so after you get up from your knees, or after you finish that fast, call your therapist. After you get up from your knees and after you finish that fast, talk to somebody. Reach out to
Mm-hmm.
that person that you feel like you can confide in, that you've been telling that you're okay and everything's good and you don't need any help. Reach out to that person and say, you know what, let's talk about it. This is honestly how I'm feeling. And that is extremely important, to acknowledge the hurt, because a lot of people don't.
And I'm happy you said something about therapy because, I lost my mom when I was 14, and then it was kind of like I just lost my cousin last year. And I think when I lost my cousin last year, it pushed me over the edge. So I just started my first therapy session like last week because I'm not going to lie, I was a ticking time bomb. And my boss, you always say, Mac, you snap so much. Like, and I'm like, ain't no wrong with me. But it took one of my friend girls to say, you are very snap. And I was like, yeah, I'm at the edge. So I just started my first therapy session yesterday. And she called me codependent. But with the way she broke it down, I was like, that's me, you know? Um, so yes, I do agree. Therapy do work. It was I guess because sitting on the couch and you have somebody listening to you and you can pour all of that out. Yesterday really did me some good. I think you said you go every month, but I think I see it every week.
So this So I started at every week, and then I dropped down to twice a month, and now I feel comfortable enough to be at once a month. So
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, I mean, you do what works best for you. But if for some people are just like, no, I don't need that. I don't need, what can they do for me? But you really don't realize how helpful it actually is.
It really is. Do you think medication should be play a part in some of it, or just go through the therapy process?
I think your therapist will be able to answer that question better, and you'll ultimately do what's comfortable for you. Um, you get into therapy and you realize that, I need an extra, some extra assistance to help me out, to help stabilize me and balance my moods, then you'll cross that bridge with your therapist when you get there.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't really give like a finite explanation. I personally did not go that route. But I know that on the way that I was going, I wouldn't be surprised if that would have been the recommendation.
And do you think when people go through grieving processes, does it change the relationship, rather if it's with a spouse, a friendship, family member? Do relationships change?
Absolutely. Again, not everyone understands.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, your support system can only do so much. And your support system can only understand so much. However, you as the person that's experiencing, and I'm saying this from experience because I have a lot of really good friends that stayed with me through the end. I mean, they probably did everything but strip me down and put me in the tub themselves. Like they were there, hands on, wiping my snotty nose.
Mm-hmm.
My best friend sat with me at the viewing for 8+ hours, sitting and sitting with the casket because I refused to leave. So you have to know who your support system is and what they are and what they're capable of. But at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, as the griever, you have to be mindful that your support system is not your punching bag.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are treating your supporters and the people that care about you as if they're disposable, then that is how they will feel.
Yeah.
And so you have to be mindful of those type of actions, because they will have reactions and people will say, I'm not dealing with you, this is too much for me. I don't have to put up with this. And that will cause tension. Husbands and wives, they may not understand why you want to lay in bed all day.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you communicate those things with them, they may not understand. Parents may not understand the fact that, I know you lost one, but you have three more. What about me? I'm still, oh, mom, I'm still here. They may not understand that. And sibling relationships may change.
Yeah.
Oh, he didn't even like you like that. Or, oh, y'all weren't even, so many different things, can happen. Money, life insurance policies, and tangible items can definitely cause issues in the dynamic of, well, I was living with them and I was this, so what do I get? So many different dynamics that can happen that can change the relationship. We see it all the time. It is extremely common to happen that the relationships will change and have changed. Spouses get divorces. Siblings stop speaking to one another. People move
Okay.
away. A lot of things change, and I know we like to say like, oh, things always change after such and such passes and things like that, or we see it a lot in the Black community because that's what we identify with. But it's definitely everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So why do people still feel alone, even though you have this big support system and positive people in your corner? Why do you still have that feeling of being alone?
Um, for me, and I had a lot of support, and I'm so thankful to this day for the people that have supported me throughout this process. I think it boils down to, and I see this meme all the time where they say, don't focus on who's not there, focus on who's present. And I think in grief, like, we don't know how to focus on who's present because we miss who's not there so much.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of times, as much as we want to not feel alone and not be in a weird space, like, we can't help it because we're so devastated of what has happened, what has transpired. If it's a situation to where someone was murdered and the person wasn't captured, you might have that fear. Are they coming back for me? You know, um,
Retaliation.
are they? So, like, you have that like natural anxiety that will not go away,
Mm-hmm.
um, to where you end up struggling. Or if you just feel like no one understands, like, say you were only child and you lost your sibling, if you had a sibling, now you're only child, who's going to relate to me? Like, no one can really talk to me about this because they're not in my shoes, or things like that. So I think that in essence, it's kind of inevitable to not feel alone because you're so lost, and there's a piece that will never fill that void.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, as I'm sure you can relate, losing your mom. Like, no one can ever take that place of my mom. So I don't care how many grandmas, aunties, cousins that nourish me and are there for me. I want my mom, you know? And I think that as much as you don't want to feel alone, you can't help it because you want that person. They tell me all the time, people in heaven have the best seat in the house. And I truly believe that. I truly believe that all my loved ones, my grandparents, family members and friends that have passed on are here with me every step of the way. And they are cheering us on way better than anyone else could. However, I just want to lean on you a little bit. I just want to smell you. Can I?
Physical touch.
Yeah. Can I nudge you? Can I be mad that you didn't take the trash out? Can I have, you know, different feelings to make me feel better, to make me not feel like I'm alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so in essence, I think that as much as we don't want to feel alone, it's kind of one of those things that we really can't get away from.
So, what are some self care tips that you can give the people that are what you do to kind of move forward? Self care or coping skills you use?
So in the beginning, I'll be honest, I was not self-care friendly at all. I was very heavily involved in alcohol. I um, I wanted to die. I wanted to kill myself. Um, I just couldn't move. I could,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, it was bad. It was very bad, very bad. I was very mean and irritable and ugly and disrespectful because I was hurt, so everybody else needed to hurt too.
Mm-hmm.
Time I saw people kind of going on with their regular lives, it would piss me off. Or anytime I saw petty arguments with siblings or anything like that, it would piss me off.
Trigger.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have no idea like what you're taking for granted right now. Um, so that took time. So the first thing that I had to do was acknowledge that I was damaged and that I was hurt. And once I got to a place where I was able to acknowledge the hurt, the pain, the anguish, the disappointment, the guilt, all of these different things that I felt throughout that time, then I was able to start to talk about it. I was able to start talking about it without crying.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to, just focus more on me,
Mm-hmm.
back up. I ended up relocating and coming out here. And so once I was able to get that part and move past that, no, once I was able to get that part done, then I was able to get into a place where I was able to, I don't know, maybe do more like spiritual reading, stay in
Mm-hmm.
the Bible, talking about it, and not being scared. Because remember, I said earlier, like, people don't understand, or people,
Mm-hmm.
years, prior, like, they're over it. The funeral's over. We good. We get to go on, about our day. But now I'm in a space where thinking about it is all that I can do. And so, I started to talk about it more, but I started to talk about it in more of a positive way. Like, I went through this experience and it sucked, but this is kind of what I've learned from it, and this is how it's helped me. That's kind of how I ended up going into the whole dissertation phase. And, like, you know what? I'm realizing there's not a whole lot of resources out there for siblings.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, there's not a whole lot of resources allocated to African Americans because we choose not to utilize those resources because we're in a space where it's like, well, I really don't need this,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm just gonna pray about it and we're good. And a lot of times, like, we end up doing more damage than good for ourselves because, while again, prayer is great, where's the work? So, like, what work are you putting in to make it, so again, putting that band-aid on that gunshot wound. So definitely getting into therapy, talking about it as much as you can, and talking about it with someone that you feel like is going to be supportive of you, and not someone that's gonna be annoyed by the conversation. Like, you want to be around people that can say, like, they may or may not know what that pain feels like,
Mm-hmm.
but that they can support you enough to to love on you, to give you a hug, to
Yeah.
let you vent over a glass of wine, to whatever it is, and to let you get that off of you, because right now you feel alone because you don't have that environment where you can speak on that. So talking about it, self-care, excuse me, talking about it, therapy, acknowledging it, um getting involved. If you can get involved with like a local grief center, in your areas. I know sometimes they host like walks and, all those different things. So getting active. If your significant other or family member was died, from overdose or COVID or something like that, COVID awareness walks,
Mhm.
walking for getting fentanyl off the streets and all of that stuff, whatever the case may be. So, definitely, I think getting involved is probably what kept me back on track.
Mhm.
Obviously, now I'm a mom now and a wife, so I have other distractions, but um, when it was just me and I had all this free time, like I would dive into work. I would always have multiple things going on and always have, just a variety of just everything. I would literally overload myself to the point where I was about to die.
Yeah.
Uh, and, just having to acknowledge like when enough is enough, take some stuff off your plate when you need to, focus on you, um, and acknowledge when you are, when you're struggling.
And to piggyback off you, when it comes to self care, I suppressed a lot of my issues that I was going through when it came to death. Like I said, with my mother and grandmother and uncles and now cousin, I suppressed a lot of that, and I didn't know what self care was. I was just like you, always busy, always trying to do something. But like I said, now the death of my cousin, it was tragic how it happened, and like I said, it's kind of it just triggered me. Like little things would just trigger me. So now self care, I kind of like journal. I
Mhm.
learned how to journal. Now I have to take my therapist told me to take walks and do little things, and but journaling has really helped me, and also prayer, but journaling has really helped me. I made a mistake of trusting a lot of people when I opened up, and I guess there was a part, I'm guessing now, the codependency, but I have specific people I could talk to that support me. But I actually put up a wall, um because of what I went through in the past. But I do agree self care is good. Talking to people, talking to a therapist, like I said, taking walks, journal, all that is good, because grief is hard. Grief is hard. I'm like you. You want that physical touch. You want to smell them. You want to hear them again. And when you don't have that, it's like, oh man. So it's kind of like relapsing. So, do you have like other resources that people can attend to?
Absolutely. Like I said, I'm an advocate of therapy. So, contacting, if your job offers EAP, if you might not, have the funds to go to therapy, the Employment Assistance Program is really good. You can contact the Christie Center, which is here in Austin. So if you're local, reach out to the Christie Center. I'm actually in the process of volunteering with them to be a grief facilitator, so that people can come to weekly grief groups, and also to help kind of bring in our crowd, to there. So, that is definitely an option. They have a variety of groups. So they break it all down. I'm actually hoping to start my own sibling group, because they do not have that, which is pretty common. They consider that mixed loss, so they kind of just put them in a group with everybody, aunts, grandparents, and all that good stuff. Um, you can reach out to the National Mental Health Association. They have resources listed on there as well. Um, if you feel comfortable going to like your pastor, or if they have a bereavement ministry, maybe getting involved with that. But anything to where you can address you, like whatever it is that is internally going on with you, to help you move forward, is definitely going to be essential for anyone's growth.
And I know you said you became a wife and a mother. So did your grieving process affect any of that at all? You becoming a wife and a mother?
Absolutely, because you want them there. you want them to be you want them to be available, your phones, you want them to be available, and you want them there, you want them with you, that you want them to see these experiences that you're, dealing with. I want him to hold her and to see her and to experience life with her, but he's not here to do that. So a lot of the like important milestones and exciting times that were coming were also depressing.
Mm-hmm.
So when I met my husband, when we got engaged, when we got married, when we bought our home, when we had our baby, it's just like, dang, like I want you to see this. Like, look at this little sister that has blossomed into this swan, that is doing the thing, left and right. So then, like, I went to school, and my degree got conferred the day after his birthday. My daughter was born 2 days after his birthday. So I just feel like, at the end of the day, like God knew what I needed,
Mm-hmm.
and gave him right back to me in that aspect of things, and gave me a reason to smile around that time. You know, um, really just took that pain and turned it into purpose.
Yeah.
And again, that's why it's important to speak out on these things, because a lot of times, especially our generation is, thankfully, I'm glad that this new age, um, these new age millennials, like we're all into like mental health and self care. And if you gotta quit that job, then do what you got to do. And so I'm glad that we're a lot more in tune, but I also want us to make sure that like when these different experiences come, that we really know how important it is to really handle them head on, instead of kind of, you know well, maybe we'll figure it out, or maybe we'll be okay, or maybe this will
Mm-hmm.
get better, but we got to put some action behind it.
Exactly. And as an educator, how do you talk to your children? I mean, your kids. Like, how do you help them get through if they come to you with a problem?
So I have college students, so
College students.
they big kids now. And so with the students, like I said, I'm just a real big advocate on research and things like that. And so I just always tell them like, hey, reach out wherever you can. Don't let these situations and these jobs and these life experiences like boggle you down to where you feel like I'm going to be at a space where I have to be stuck in this position forever. Like I tell them,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, hey, um, you know, if you have any questions about this, if you need a letter of recommendation, like don't limit yourself. Like I am here for y'all. I want to see you guys blossom to the best of your abilities. Because a lot of times, by the time the students are in like night classes, they've probably been in their career a long time and they feel like it's nothing else for them. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like every time they say that there's a glass ceiling, I'm like, kick it out, like there is no ceiling. Like keep moving, keep pushing, keep progressing, keep doing whatever it is that you need to do. And so I just do my best to try to encourage them with just anything in general. And then it'll always come down to, in our independent counseling sessions where like these specific issues are really honing them down, where they have relational issues, where they have, death or traumatic issues going on, to where they feel like they won't be able to get this assignment in on time, or I had a student not too long ago, CPS was involved with her children and it was extremely frustrating. And, you know, just the different things that life kind of throws at us, and we don't have a whole lot of control over a lot of things. But just always encouraging them, and again, just kind of using those times to speak up.
Okay. So we're almost out of time. We're getting low on time. Is there like I know we are in Texas and people probably from other states are watching. So do you have like a number or email or something if they want to reach out to you for additional information when it comes to grief? Or what can they do?
Um, I do not. However, you can message me on Facebook, Terra N Brown on Facebook. And I can definitely assist you as best as I can to get you in contact with any of your local resources. Um, I can also provide you with information that I was able to identify in my research. My dissertation is available online if you would like to, chime in and read that. I speak on parental grief. I speak on sibling grief. I speak on childhood grief. So if you experience the loss or your child has experienced the loss at 3, 4, 5 years old, I'm able to kind of give you information about regression and how kids respond to grief and behavioral changes, teenagers and how they may turn into being hypersexual or turning to drugs or alcohol, things like that, and kind of acting out, getting put out of class, stuff like that. I talk about the different roles that adult grief kind of plays. For example, if your mom passed away, you might become the mom of the family, and you may end up suppressing your own grief, um, so that you can make sure all your siblings and your grandma and everybody else is taken care of. So roles change, and that happens in any situation. The roles change. Um, and so I talk about that quite a bit, but I really focus on African American homicide and how law enforcement could do a little bit better when they notify the families, how the media could do a little bit better when they're plastering videos and pictures all over the news, um, and how traumatizing that is. You know, no one wants to see George Floyd's mom, family didn't want to see him being kneeled on for 9 minutes, you know, and I'm sure many other loved ones didn't want to see their loved ones gunned down on national TV. And so seeing those videos replayed time and time again is traumatizing. Seeing the small 2-inch mugshot versus seeing a full 8 by 10 of a family photo, it's and it's frustrating. So I talk about all of that in my dissertation. It is over 200 pages, so I do not expect anyone to read it. But if you are interested in kind of seeing kind of the perspective that I was able to bring into things, you can research the African American sibling homicide on Google, and my dissertation will be the first link that pops up. And I also did include helpful information and recommendations in there as well.
And did you have a hard time writing your dissertation?
You know, coincidentally, while I was writing my dissertation and I was in the finishing stages of interviews, I assumed that the fatigueness and the stress that was coming from that of listening 12 different participant stories, one as recent as 3 months prior to me writing my dissertation, some as brutal as having siblings kidnapped, murdered, and buried, you know, and not being able to find their bodies for days. Super traumatizing, super, um, like I just couldn't, you know, it was tough. You know? And so I listened to that. Then I had to listen to the recordings. I had to transcribe them out. I had to identify where the commonalities were amongst them. So it was a lot. It was a lot. Interviews were about an hour and a half. So that was a lot of communicating and question asking for 12 different people. Um, and so I just assumed, like, you know, like this is overwhelming. I'm extremely fatigued by this. And I actually found out I was pregnant during that time. And so it was emotionally challenging, but I think it was heightened because I was pregnant. Uh, I literally completed an interview on New Year's Eve, and that was like the middle of the week. And that Friday, I was pregnant. Well, I found out I was pregnant, and so it kind of all made sense. Like yes, it was traumatizing. Yes, it was hard. But I just had to remove my own personal bias. No, not one participant knew that I was a sibling survivor. And so I just kept me out of it. And I was I and that's what you have to do in research, whether you feel some type of way or not. You just have to pull you out of it and let the research speak for itself.
Okay. Well, I thank you for joining Hoops and Hurdles and giving us all this good advice, baby, when it comes to coping with grief. Thank you for giving us your information on where we can go if we want to have get additional information when it comes to coping with grief. And do you have any additional things you want to say to the audience before we get up out of here?
No, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for having me tonight. I think you're doing a great thing, and just keep it up. I cannot wait to see you walk across that stage, future Dr. Mac.
Ooh, girl, pray for me. Well, I thank everyone for tuning in to Hoops and Hurdles. This is your girl, Teresa. If you see below the thing you're scrolling, follow Hoops and Hurdles on all platforms. Also, follow the website. Again, it is scrolling at the bottom. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, this is your girl, Teresa, and we're out.